Bum, 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 bum. Hello. Welcome to the show, as it were. Today we will be reading from Chapter 5, The Magician. But first, I'm going to show off my t-shirt. Beth, or B value 2, means house. The first thing about a house is its location, determined by survey and application of geometry. In its building, architecture, geometry, adaptation of materials, and many other practical applications of science are involved. Time was when the whole art of building was called a mystery. There was a time when the whole art of building was called a mystery, and was under the direction of the priests of Thoth, Nebo, Hermes, Mercury. House building is part of Hermetic science, and survivals of this idea are preserved in the rituals of Freemasonry. Just worse now. Where is this flashing coming from? Mercury is the astrological attribution to Beth. It represents both the planet and the god. Understand by God an aspect of a universal consciousness personified. The gods are the Elohim of the Hebrew Scriptures, wherein it is written of man, I said ye are gods. To Mercury or Hermes, Hiram, the Egyptians attributed their 42 books of science, embracing astronomy, astrology, arithmetic, geometry, medicine, grammar, logic, rhetoric, music, magic, and so on. Mercury or Hermes was the great magician and transformer, bearing the caduceus or wand of miracles, which survives to this day as a symbol of the healing art. He was, nevertheless, only the messenger of a divinity higher than himself, merely the transmitter, not the originator, the channel rather than the source. Astrologically, the Mercury vibration represents intellect. In the color scale used throughout these lessons, it is yellow, the color assigned to spirit and air, but a deeper tint than that assigned to Uranus. The musical tone is the same, E natural. Beth is one of the 7 double letters, so called because they have in Hebrew both a hard and soft pronunciation. To every double letter is assigned a pair of opposites. To Beth and Mercury, because the letter and planet designate as an aspect of consciousness which destroys as easily as it creates, the pair assigned is life and death. Intelligence of transparency is the mode of consciousness. Excuse me, I'm going to back it up. It makes sense. I always say that you are the weapon. That sword does nothing without being within your hand. And your body does nothing without your spirit being within it. And what is this universe without us in it? Intelligence of transparency is the mode of consciousness. Transparency means letting light shine through. Here we have the same idea of transmission that is suggested by Hermes as the transmitter of the messages of the higher divinity. Clearly, the mode of consciousness called transparent must be one which affords a free channel of communication, which permits the free passage downward and outward of the superconscious light which is above and within. Above is the direction assigned to Beth, because the mode of consciousness corresponding to the letter is the superior term of human personal consciousness. as Hermes was herald of the gods, directing the soul, according to the Egyptian mythology, through the mysteries of the underworld or night side of nature, so is this superior phase of human personal consciousness the initiator and the conductor of human personality through the mazes of life. It is the number one consciousness, the ego consciousness, the I am I, which is sometimes called objective mind, but because it is first of all consciousness of the indwelling presence of the superconscious self, we prefer to term it self-consciousness. It is the onlooker, the director, the superior personal mode of a universal conscious energy. It is your everyday waking consciousness. The Magician is the correct title of Key 1, used in all versions of tarot belonging to occult fraternities, though it is sometimes debased into the juggler in exoteric pacts. Magic is simply the ancient name for science, particularly for Hermetic science. Don't ever forget about the spiritual component of things. Who lives in the house? The Magician is a house builder, but who's he building a house for? Don't cuck out and build someone else's house. The true magic presides over house building because it shows us how to erect actual houses so as to take advantage of occult properties of the earth currents of magnetic vibration. The higher phases of magic, moreover, have to do with the building of the house of personality, with the rearing of the temple of spirit. The house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. The magic of light presides over life and death because it has to do with laws and principles whereby self-conscious states of mind initiate and determine subconscious reactions. These reactions make for life or for death, according to the patterns which self-consciousness formulates and passes down to the subconscious plane. Every true magician knows that all his practice has a mathematical, geometrical basis. By the aid of occult geometry, he has traced nature to her concealed recesses. He uses geometrical formulae and diagrams in his practical work. Finally, though he knows himself to be above nature, he understands that his operations succeed to the degree that his thought, word, and action transmit faithfully the powers of the plane above him. The greatest magicians know themselves to be no more than the channels for the life power, clear window panes through which the light of wisdom within the house of personality streams forth into the objective world. The arbor of roses over the magician's head corresponds to the letter name, Beth, because an arbor is the simplest type of shelter. Red roses, symbols of Venus, represent the desire nature. Here they suggest that the power which the magician draws from above is modified or qualified by desire. This is true of all self-conscious activity. Every moment of our waking consciousness is motivated and conditioned by some type of desire. In other words, use what you got. The horizontal figure 8 over the magician's head is the ancient occult number ascribed to Hermes. See explanation of the number 8 in Chapter 2. This horizontal 8 is also a symbol of the Holy Spirit. It means dominion on the horizontal plane, that is, dominion in material affairs, because one of the oldest symbols of matter is the horizontal line. In contrast to the fool's yellow locks, the black hair of the magician signifies ignorance, yet this ignorance is limited by knowledge, for a white crown encircles the Magnus's brow. It passes round his forehead at the location of the brain areas particularly active in self-conscious mentation, self-conscious mentation, not meditation, mentation. Mentation. It's a good read, I tell you. I gotta give me one of those dictionaries. His uplifted right hand suggests power drawn from above. The wand it holds aloft is a double-ended phallic symbol. It is phallic because the nerve force focused to maintain the reproductive functions may be purified and sublimated by certain magical procedures. The purification is suggested by the whiteness of the wand. Its 2 points, exactly alike in form, remind us of the Hermetic axiom: that which is above is as that which is above, and that which is above is as that which is below. For the performance of the miracles of the one thing. It's all just a place to live. It is a temple of some kind. Know who the owner of the house is, and know what houses you own. The magician's down pointing in the left hand symbolizes direct power plane, just restoration. The magician's down-pointing left hand symbolizes direction of power to a plane below. It makes the gesture of concentration. The pointing finger is that attributed to the planet Jupiter. From this finger, palmists judge the degree of a client's powers of leadership and direction. It is the executive and determinative finger. The gesture plainly conveys the notion that concentration is the secret of the direction and control of forces below the plane of self-conscious awareness. Of the double gesture made by the magician's hands, Dr. Waite says, this dual sign is known in very high grades of the instituted mysteries. It shows the descent of grace, virtue, and light, drawn from things above and derived to things below. The suggestion throughout is, therefore, the possession and communication of the powers and gifts of the Spirit. The magician's white inner robe has the same significance as the white garment of the fool. The serpent girdle signifies wisdom and eternity. Serpent biting his tail. Dr. Waite says, here it indicates more especially the eternity of attainment in the Spirit. The serpent is colored blue-green because it is also a symbol of the serpent force, which is utilized in all magical practice. This force is related to the sign Scorpio, which in our color scale is associated with blue-green. The magician's red outer garment represents desire, passion, and activity. Its color is that of the planet Mars, which astrology associates with action and initiative. This red robe has no binding girdle. It may be slipped on or off at the magician's pleasure. This means that self-consciousness may enter into action or abstain from it, according to circumstances. Thus, this bit of symbolism is connected with the power of choice, or of selection, characteristic of self-consciousness. The table before the magician represents the field of attention in modern psychology. The word table has also affinities in language with the word measurement, inasmuch as to classify and arrange is to tabulate. Note that the corners of the table had to be squared and that the cylindrical legs, which have capitals like Ionic columns, required the use of compasses, and by their capitals suggest the orders of architecture. On the table in front of the magician, writes Dr. Waite, are the implements of the 4 tarot suits, signifying the elements of natural life, which lie like counters before the adept, and he adapts them as he wills. As elements of natural life, they refer to fire, the wand, water, the cups, air, the swords, and earth, the coins or pentacles. They symbolize also the 4 worlds and correspond to the letters of IHVH. The magician's problem is to arrange them in proper order. In ceremonial magic, these implements are the staff, the cup of libations and divination, the magic sword, and the pentacle or talisman. On the pentacles are written or engraved words, numbers, geometrical figures, and sigils. These are determined by the nature of the magical operation to be affected by the powers they represent. In this instance, the sigil on the pentacle is the pentalpha, the five-pointed star, or pentagram. Of this sign, Eliphas Levi says, "The pentagram expresses the mind's dominion over the elements, and it is by this sign that we bind the demons of the air, the spirits of fire, the specters of water, and the ghosts of earth. It is the star of the Magi, the burning star of the Gnostic schools, the sign of intellectual omnipotence and autocracy. It is the symbol of the Word made flesh. The sign of the pentagram is called also the sign of the microcosm. Its complete comprehension is the key of the two worlds. It is absolute natural philosophy and natural science." From the foregoing quotation you may come to understand the nature of the work to which the magician in tarot is directing his powers. Be careful not to take the first sentence of the quotation too literally. There is a meaning behind the surface meaning. Find it yourself. In practical, everyday life, the implements of the magician are the four life essentials: light, wand; water, the cup; air, sword; and food, pentacle. The combination of these life essentials in proper order and proportions is the task of every practical occultist. Finally, the four implements correspond to four ancient esoteric admonitions, esoteric admonitions. Finally, the four implements correspond to four ancient esoteric admonitions, which sum up the whole practical application of occult law. These admonitions are: to will, wand; to know, cup; to dare, sword; and to be silent, pentacle. The last, in some respects, is the most important. Occult means hidden, and one of the first duties of a practical occultist is the practice of silence. The magician's garden is the antithesis to the barren height whereon stands the fool. The garden is fertile and productive. It is itself a symbol of the subconscious plane of mental activity. From this teeming soil come forth the productions which give shape and form to the ideas of the magician. He is shown as a gardener, like Adam, of whom an old legend says that he was put into the Garden of Eden to grow roses. Like Adam, self-consciousness is the namer of objects. Like Adam, personal self-consciousness is formed by the power of the Lord, who is that which was, is, and shall be. Like Adam, the personal self-consciousness is formed of the dust of the ground, because self-consciousness, is an aggregate of myriads of tiny sense impersonations, dust, originating in that cosmic operation of the life power which makes the environment of personality and is the true ground or basis of all self-conscious experience. Beneath, writes Dr. Waite, are roses and lilies, the Flos Campi and Lilium convallium, changed into garden flowers to show the culture of aspiration. Red roses typify Venus and the desire nature. White lilies represent abstract thought, untinged by desire. The roses are developed from the five-petaled wild rose, and thus they symbolize the number 5, which was, for its geometrical correspondence, the pentagram. As symbols of desire, they represent that phase of subconscious response to self-conscious direction, which has to do with art, invention, and the adaptation of the principles of abstract truth to practical ends. Because all desires are related to sensation, there are 5 roses corresponding to the conventional 5 senses. Lilies have 6 petals, and in cross-section their flowers show the hexagram, or 6-pointed star, which is the symbol of the macrocosm. Pure science concerns itself with the study of the powers of the macrocosm and with the laws of those powers. Because these laws and forces operate in the four worlds or planes mentioned in Chapter 1, the number of lilies shown in the picture is 4. Thus, all meanings of the letter Beth, the number 1, and the symbols of the magician refer to powers of the self-conscious phase of personal mental activity. These powers are directed primarily to the control of forces and things below the self-conscious level. The energy utilized comes from above, from superconsciousness. It is fixed and modified by acts of attention. Concentration is the great secret of the magical art. True concentration is perfect transparency, in which personality becomes a free, unobstructed channel for the passage downward and outward of the superconscious radiant energy. Herein is the secret of true volition, and Eliphas Levi tells us, all magic is in the will. Yes. So what do we think about the house builder? He with the knowledge of transparency is there As with most of my cards, I try to add things on top of it just to, complicate it for myself. But for other little weird reasons. Observe. The red and blue above his head, that is a reference to actually the next card, the High Priestess, the pillars that she is sitting in between. And his headband has a little bit of purple in it. It is the combination of the forces, the creative aspects, the 3 as the 1. Yeah. Oh, and then I put my sigil on his forehead, because it's my deck. That's right. Mine. Personalized it. And shit. But anyway. At the time of the recording of this video, I'm pretty sure that Mars is still in Gemini. And I was noting on it the other day, because Gemini is supposed to be the communicators, but the tower, which corresponds to Mars, is speech. I think it's interesting. Until next time.